I used to think I was being smart by trying to do everything myself until I realized that I was the only bottleneck in my business. As entrepreneurs, especially when starting out, we're taught to hustle, to grind, and do it all. But that mindset kept me small for too long and tired. In today's video, I want to help you avoid that trap. I'll break down when it's time to start building your team, who to bring on first, and what to outsource so you can grow faster and reclaim your time. Remember, trying to wear every hat in your small business doesn't make you scrappy, it keeps you stuck. First objective of this video is when is it time for you to start building out your team? And then the second objective is who do you hire first? And these are going to go hand in hand as I explain this to you. In my opinion, the way I have done it in the past, the time that you actually want to hire and start building your team is when you yourself have generated enough revenue in your company to be able to afford to hire someone. Whenever I was talking about the staffing agency, I knew originally that I was going to be working in the business. The only reason I hired additional folks was because I was double booked and needed someone to cover those shifts, but I also made profit off of that. My end game in that business was never to run a staffing agency where I didn't work in the day-to-day at all. So therefore, I know I needed to secure my 40 hours per week plus whatever additional that I outsourced to other pharmacists to actually be able to fill. PCN, on the other hand, the consulting organization, I knew from day one, I never wanted to always work in the day-to-day operations. So whenever we started out, I was the one that was actually making the phone calls for our very first client directly to members to see if they were adherent to their medications. This is something that a pharmacy technician could do. Pharmacy technicians are much cheaper labor than a pharmacist, which is what I am. So the very first person I brought on to our team was a pharmacy technician because they then can make those phone calls that I was making and free me up to return to sales and marketing and the things that only I could do, which was the more clinical focused calls. The next person I brought onto that team was a pharmacist because I'm still technically in the day-to-day because I have to be available to the pharmacy technician to answer the clinically related questions. So as soon as we got more revenue invested in the company, then we hired a pharmacist to be able to take on the clinical responsibilities that I had. So now technically I'm not in the day-to-day of my business at all because we got a technician that's making the phone calls and I've got a pharmacist that's managing that technician and also the clinical responsibility. So the question, when is it time to start building your team? In my opinion, is when you've got paying clients, you've got the revenue to go ahead and hire somebody to start doing some of the tasks that you're doing for your day-to-day operations. And who is the very first person that you hire? It's going to be that cheaper labor that can do the things that's in your day-to-day task. If you are fortunate enough to already have seed money or investors or grant or money that you're planning to pull from your 401k to start your business, then off the rip, you can probably go ahead and hire somebody to do those daily tasks so that you yourself don't have to. The next objective is what do you actually outsource in order for you to buy time? I am an advocate of how to find ways to buy back time. Number one, you want to find ways that you're doing certain things and they may be taking you hours to do, but you can actually pay somebody to do that for you so that you can actually use that time to build and work on your business. So this could be hiring somebody to clean your house. That could be hiring somebody to do your lawn, pick up your laundry and do it for you. Those are personal household daily things that you may have to do that you're spending hours on per week when you can just pay somebody to do that so that you can actually focus on sales and marketing for your business. Now, from a business standpoint, what are some things that you could go ahead and outsource is number one, websites, landing pages, and funnels. Unless you are a professional at building a website or use some of these AI tools that can build a website pretty quickly, then I would say outsource that. Have somebody else build your website, have somebody else build your landing pages and funnels. You can go on Fiverr. If you're a ClickFunnels user, you can actually hire a funnel hacker to actually build these funnels out for you. You can purchase templates so you can actually have your funnel halfway built already. Don't spend a lot of time on that. I would actually outsource that particular service so that you don't have to waste time trying to build those things out. And it's probably going to be mediocre at best. You may also want to outsource bookkeeping. I do not. I've never outsourced bookkeeping. I like to keep an eye on all my finances and expenses myself. However, I do use QuickBooks, and I've used QuickBooks for years. And I spend maybe an hour to 2 hours per month reconciling the books and making sure the receipts go with the expenses and QuickBooks and this technology have gotten a whole lot better than when I used to have my businesses. You can now email your receipt into QuickBooks and it'll match it to the transaction itself and attach it. So there's a lot more things in there now that you can do that I couldn't do in years past. So I myself keep up with my bookkeeping, but that may not be something that you want to do, and you want to outsource somebody to actually keep up with your bookkeeping. Word of advice though, you yourself want to make sure you have a handle on your finances, what's coming in and what's coming out. So don't always fully delegate that to somebody. You always want to be keeping track of that yourself. You may not be the one that's doing the administrative task of tying this expense to that and reconciling, but you want to make sure that you are keeping an eye on what is coming in and out of all your bank accounts. Payroll, I do payroll myself, but I use a payroll service, and this is from experience, y'all. I'm telling you, one of my very first companies, I decided that I would just take the cheap route and go online and do like paychecks.com or something, put in the person's amount, and then I would cut these checks manually. That was a disaster because then I had to worry about paying the quarterly taxes. It was a straight disaster. I would never ever recommend anybody do that again. Get yourself hooked up with a payroll service that can take care of your paying your contractors, paying your W-2 employees, making sure your taxes go to the right spot. With PSIN, we ended up hiring people across 5 different states. If I would not have had ADP, which is the payroll service we use in place, it would have been a nightmare because you had to have workers' comp insurance, all that stuff. So I would recommend that you absolutely outsource the payroll. You may not necessarily have to outsource the payroll, actually doing the payroll, but you need a payroll service in place that's going to handle those tasks and make it easy for you yourself to actually run payroll. Now, I was at a 10X Growth Con, and one of the fellow business owners that went with me was on Sunday. He was trying to call in his payroll, and I was like, "Why are you? What do you mean calling in your payroll?" And he says, "Oh, I have to call this number and tell them how many hours for each employee so they can process payroll." To me, that is not a good payroll service. I can do payroll in less than 20 minutes every Sunday using ADP. I can log on anywhere. I was in Hilton Head this past weekend. Before I hit the road, I plugged up my computer, hit it with my hotspot, went in and did payroll in 20 minutes, and I was out the door. I'm not calling anybody and manually putting in hours for each of my employees, just not doing that. And here's another tidbit for you. That's probably fine with him now because he only has 5 employees. But if you're in a growth mindset mentality, what's going to happen when you have 33 employees like I do now? There's no way I would have sat there and told them how many hours I've got for 33 people. Marketing materials is another thing that you may want to outsource. If you're spending a lot of time trying to do brochures and flyers and all that kind of stuff, go to Fiverr, hire you a freelancer to actually be able to build those things out for yourself and save yourself some time. It's not that expensive, and it's going to give you the ability to, again, focus on sales and marketing. Use AI tools. ChatGPT is a huge tool. If you're not using it, you should. There's other AI tools out there, but I'm not going to promote things that I haven't used just yet. But I use ChatGPT on a daily basis. It's going to help you get copy for your website. It's going to help you with your content strategy. Maybe contracts that you just need some language to put in. How do I actually onboard somebody? A checklist. Now, I wouldn't use ChatGPT for legal contracts, but it can start giving you some ideas of what you need to start looking for to put in your statements of work. What do you need to put in for your onboarding documents? Give you a checklist for your business. Those type things is what you would actually want to use ChatGPT for. And then the last piece that I want to talk about under the bucket of how do you buy your time is an assistant. And this is a mistake I made. I did not hire an assistant fast enough. Okay. I just hired an assistant October of last year, and it has been a game changer. It never even dawned on me that I needed an assistant. I heard people talk about virtual assistants, etc. But I actually hired a friend of mine who's in event planning to actually be an administrative assistant. And it has been a game changer. Okay. And the reason being is there's a lot of stuff that comes up that me as the owner, I may have given it to my pharmacist director to do, but it's not necessarily something that a pharmacist or the director of operations necessarily has to do. So an example would be ordering drug screens and the background checks for new hires. That is not something necessarily that he needs to do. And I don't have an HR department. I have an HR company that I've outsourced HR work to. However, onboarding is not part of that. The administrative assistant is there to do things like we had a dinner at Hilton Head this weekend, and it was last minute. We decided to do the dinner for the team. All I had to do was say, hey, can you contact everybody by text message, make the reservations, and get everybody there? And it was done. We were looking for a phone system that could handle IVR surveys. And instead of having my pharmacist or technicians go out and try and do this work, I gave it to her. She found the companies, vetted them, set up the appointments. Those are the things that you want to be able to give an administrative assistant. Those little tasks that add up that you don't even be thinking about. I've never used a virtual assistant before. I know people who have. In my opinion, it made more sense for me to pay somebody here in the States more money than it did somebody out of the States virtually to do this work, because it's less of a learning curve. And if y'all know anything about me, I pay for convenience, okay? And so it was just easier for me to hire the expertise that I needed here and to pay them more. Now, you may not have the revenue to be able to do that early on, and then you may want to hire a virtual assistant, and that is fine. But just make sure that you don't do the mistake that I did and wait too long to actually hire an administrative assistant. It's just a huge blessing to you and your team. You really don't realize how much you've put on your team without having an administrative assistant until you actually hire an administrative assistant. Now that we've gotten over those objectives, I want to close this video out by talking about how do you identify signs that you're staying small for too long? How do you identify signs that you're the bottleneck of your company? How do you identify signs that your company's not growing because of you? And so here's 3 ways that you can identify if that is actually occurring and you're actually staying too small for too long. Number 1, you're not meeting deadlines and expectations. So, and this happened early on when it was just me and we only had one client. I was Johnny on the spot with responding to emails. It was nothing. You sent me an email today, within 30 to 45 minutes, I had your response back. When it started to get to where it was taking me days to respond to somebody, or I actually forgot to respond to somebody, it's taking me days to get back to setting up my sales presentations and to get all my stuff together so I can actually set up an event. That was telling me right there that you're the bottleneck of your company, because now when you didn't have anybody on your books and anybody in your as a client, you had more time to actually be able to do that work. But now that you're actually in the daily operations and doing work and working in the business and not on the business, you're now not able to respond quickly and meet deadlines that you needed to meet in order to help out your sales and marketing or the clients that you actually have on books to actually serve. Number 2, you're working in the business and not on it. If you're working 16-hour days and 14 of them are working in the business and 2 hours is working on the business, that's telling you right there that you are staying small too long. If you're only working on the business that you actually have, how do you expect to grow if you're the one man that's also got to do sales and marketing? So if you're not spending time on actually getting more business and you're only working on the business that you actually have, you're the bottleneck. You're not going to be able to get additional business. That is like the staffing agency in a simple example. If I'm the one working 40 hours per week, I'm no longer able to go out and do any marketing, which that happened to me. I only got through half of my list before pharmacies started calling me and I had to go to work. And then luckily for me, some of those pharmacists I already touched also needed services. So therefore I was double booked and was able to bring on additional staff. That was fine for me at the time because I knew that's the model that I wanted. I just wanted just enough for me to be able to have 40 hours a week of work myself. Now, if I wanted to not ever be in the day-to-day all the time, then I would have had to have some time to actually spend on working on the business to actually get more independent pharmacies as clients for the staffing agency at that time. And third and finally, you feel tired, you feel burnt out, but when you check your bank account, you don't have any additional money. You don't have any additional revenue. You're still putting in 50 to 60-hour work weeks, but your money and your revenue is not changing. That's telling you right there that you're staying small for too long. You're only focused on doing what you yourself can do, and you're not focused on how can I actually work on my business to get more sales in so that my revenue grows, my team grows, and I myself am not feeling tired and burnt out. I hope that this video was very helpful. I absolutely love talking about building out your right team and bringing on people. And I'm not going to go into it much here, but I'm going to have a couple more videos about this because I really want people to focus on, now that you know who you're supposed to hire and when you're supposed to hire and how to identify signs when you should hire and you're not, or should outsource some things and you're not. what do those people look like? What do you actually need in those people that you're bringing on board? So that's going to be a separate video on making sure that you actually hire and outsource to the right people. If this was helpful for you, please drop a comment below. If you can't wait for that next video to come out, I have a brief preview in my blueprint for success where we talk about the 5 P's of which one of them is people. So I will link that as well so that you can check out that video. So until next time, thank you so much and go out and be successful.